everyone. This is Margaret Manning with 60 and Me. This is the place where women over 60 come to be inspired. And my guest tonight is Corey Floyd. Corey is a professor at the University of Arizona. He's a professor of communications, and he is the author of many books, but one in particular that I think we'll be very interested in to do with loneliness and affection and love in our lives. So welcome, Corey.
Thank you for having me.
It's really great to have you here, and I am sincerely interested in this topic. We've had lots of conversations in the community. And my question, let me just start with a question for you, just to kind of, get your view on something. When we think about healthy aging, we think about physical concerns,
Sure.
our diet, our health, our Alzheimer's, all these worries about physical. But healthy aging, when it comes to relationships, is like really not complicated, but more complex.
It is more complex.
And I'd love your thoughts on that.
Right. Well, it's easy to focus on physical health. And I don't think that is unique to the aging community. I think that all of us, when we think about our health, think first about the health and well-being of our bodies.
Right.
And of course, as we age, certain issues become relevant for that. But when we think about well-being, in a broader sense, that of course includes things like our psychological health and our emotional health. And those are strongly connected to things like our relationships. So when we find ourselves in states of loneliness, it turns out that all of those aspects of well-being can come under attack. We often think about loneliness as being primarily an emotional experience, and it is heavily so. But what we've discovered in our research is that it's not just limited to our ability to think properly or have good psychological well-being. There's a strong connection to our physical and mental wellness as well. And so as we age, I think all of those things become very relevant to our overall quality of life.
Right. So in your opinion, I know you've been doing this research now for, I think, 20 years, I believe, a long time. So you've talked to a lot of people. But so what are some of the symptoms of this kind of chronic loneliness that produces both psychological and physical aging? What symptoms can we look for?
Well, that's a great question. I think it is important to distinguish between chronic loneliness and just states of loneliness that all of us can feel from time to time. Yeah. Right? There are moments in anybody's day, in anybody's life, when we feel less connected, maybe a little bit more cut off, and that's very normal. Loneliness becomes problematic when it becomes chronic. And one of the symptoms that often accompanies that state is feeling a loss of interest, a loss of energy. Yeah. There's a fair amount of overlap with the symptoms of depression, actually. And when people feel cut off from good social relationships, one of the things that leads them to do is to become more introspective. So they're not quite as outgoing, they're not quite as energetic, not nearly as interested in the kinds of things that they normally find enjoyment in.
Right.
And that's often one of the first clues.
So what other adjectives would you use to describe someone? You could say that it looks like, as a friend, that person looks like they're depressed. They look like they're lethargic.
Maybe withdrawn.
Right.
Not quite as active, not quite as interested. It's almost like you've taken someone and let a little bit of their air out, right? They just get deflated.
Yeah, it's a great word, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, and that's often what people report feeling when they find themselves in a state of chronic loneliness.
And so chronic loneliness, like you said, is when you're feeling this all the time. It's not just a passing phase. It's kind of affecting your life in the sense you may not want to go out, or you may
Absolutely.
want to cancel an appointment, or just constantly not be available, that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, we all feel that way from moment to moment. But it's when it becomes more of a, it's a state that's always with us, so that we're always kind of pondering and thinking about. It's sort of the difference between feeling down and feeling chronically depressed. It's the same sort of distinction with loneliness. A little bit is normal, but all the time is not.
So, in your book, the Cure for Loneliness, you talk about these 6 strategies for, for overcoming loneliness, or at least for dealing with those feelings. Perhaps you could share just a few that a person might, use to help a friend or to advise a friend.
Absolutely. I think whenever you talk about cures or you talk about ways to
Yeah.
treat a condition, it's important to remember that one size is not going to fit all, and that the things that are going to be useful for us will depend in large part on the reasons why we
Mm-hmm.
have arrived at a lonely state.
Right.
And so for some people, what I've found is that um, they are not necessarily recognizing all of the social opportunities that they have available to them. And we see this with affection very often, that people in their minds think about affection only in a very narrow range. I want people to
Mm-hmm.
hug me. I want them to kiss me. I want them to tell me that they love me. And when I think about it in that kind of range, it's very easy for me to miss expressions of affection that I'm already receiving from other people, but I may just not be recognizing.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
one approach to treating loneliness is to rethink what we consider to be affection and social connection, kind of opening our eyes a little bit wider
Mm-hmm.
to the expressions of love and connection that we may be getting already and just overlooking.
I really like that advice. I mean, even just staying with that one strategy, I think that's really interesting, because when you feel like you're becoming chronically lonely or depressed, and you know when you're a little bit out of control. I mean, like you say, we all feel a bit down sometimes or isolated, but it's nice to have that thought in your mind that you may not be appreciating all the different. I was reading a new book today. It's funny. I just started a new book, and it was starts off with the person saying that they've been in a dark, dark place, but the smile of a stranger brought back their light.
Hmm.
And I really liked that feeling that even the smile of a stranger, it's not a hug, it's not a kiss,
Right.
but it's a human connection. Would you say that just human connection in itself, like volunteering or?
Oh gosh,
Yeah,
absolutely. Loneliness can seem like such a complicated problem,
yeah.
but that doesn't necessarily mean that the solutions to it have to be complicated.
Mm,
They can be very simple, and a smile from a stranger, or a hug from a stranger, or just somebody taking a moment out of their day to ask how your day is.
mm-hmm.
Those seem like very simple kinds of behaviors, and they are very simple for us to do
Right.
for somebody else, but it's often easy for us to overlook the profound effects that they can have on the receivers of those
Yeah.
behaviors. And I
And
think the book that you're talking about is a perfect example
yeah,
of that. It doesn't take very much
yeah.
to smile at a stranger.
Well, I think I was listening to a talk that you had given somewhere else, and I think you talked about just this accidental, affection that sometimes it happens purely by accident, and if you have to be looking to appreciate it rather than just saying, it's not meaningful because it was a stranger, or it was something
Right. Or it's not
insignificant.
meaningful because it didn't come in the form that I prefer.
Mm-hmm.
And often, we can see this even in established relationships where, say, a husband and wife might be a little bit disconcerted
Mm-hmm.
because she's not showing me or he's not showing me love in the ways that I want to
Right.
receive it.
Right.
And that can kind of close our minds to other possibilities. I often hear people tell me, I really wish that I could get my husband to do this, this, and this.
Right.
Even though he may already be doing this, this, and this, and I'm just not paying attention to
Yeah.
that.
That's not
And that's
my
a
idea.
very easy
Yeah.
mistake to
Yeah.
make.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think this has been really helpful. I think just to stay on that point. I mean, I think what we've agreed is that chronic depression, chronic loneliness or lack of human connection can actually have bigger impact on your physical health and also your emotional
Absolutely.
health.
Mm-hmm.
And that really one of those basic cures is to really just notice the signs that are around you, and not ignore that power of that social connection.
Yeah, that's right.
Get
When
out.
people
Yeah.
are really in the grip
Yeah.
of a condition like that, it can make it seem as though things are never going to get better.
Yeah.
Right. And like I said, just because the problem is complicated doesn't mean that the solutions have to be.
And I just actually said something that was totally wrong, and I was going to wait for you to catch me on it because no, seriously, because one of the things we always say is, oh, just get out, go dancing, go do something, just get out of the house, and that's really not what it's about. It's not about getting out. It's noticing what's around you. And it may mean going out or involve going out, but just like pull yourself together, just go and join a club is
Right.
not, would you just as we close, would you say that's not the right way to?
Absolutely.
Help?
Loneliness doesn't just mean a lack of social connection. People can be very socially connected, have lots of interaction with others, and still feel lonely. So getting out, it can be part of a solution.
Right.
But it's not necessarily going to solve the problem on its own. You're absolutely right.
I think this is great advice. And I just wondered if you stand out in the University of Arizona, park or whatever with a sign saying, hug me. Have you seen those people that do that?
No, I think it would be. I think there's plenty of people, college students in particular, who would be drawn to something like that. I mean, it's something that we all need.
Well, we give virtual hugs to each other in the 60andMe community all the time, and it's great to have you here, just making sure we're doing it the right way. So
that's terrific.
Thank you, Corey.
You're welcome.
Take care.